This isn't a hearing, it's a demolition. Senator Murray just took a flamethrower to Republican budget cuts, exposing the FDA's collapse under political sabotage. And it only gets worse.
I've got another question, but I'm going to turn to Senator Murray before I ask my final question, and then, of course, Senator Peters. Senator Murray.
Thank you very much, Chair Hoeven. Look forward to working with you on this really important committee. You know, Commissioner McCarty, the FDA has a really important job to do. Lives literally are at stake, and that work requires the utmost diligence and care and commitment to following the science and uploading FDA's gold standard. We all expect to walk into the drugstore and know that what we are buying has passed a safety and efficacy standard, and we have to be assured of that, and we have to be assured that the work's been done, that we don't have to question that. So I don't think it's careful leadership when you do mass fire 1 in 5 people across FDA, only to frantically then bring some back because you didn't stop and think 2 seconds about whether those jobs were actually important. We really, Mr. Chairman, cannot cheap out on the FDA and expect to maintain that gold standard that means that people know that drugs are safe. We can't just cut and hope nobody gets sick when you're slow to issue a recall, or hope no one needs that medicine that had its approval delayed, or hope there isn't another infant formula issue while your staff are getting fired or getting rehired or wherever they are. This work really takes investments. This committee knows that, and it expects expert staff, like the people that have been shoved out the door. Drug approvals are already getting delayed. Food and drug safety inspections are lagging behind. We are going in the wrong direction fast. We still have yet to see from you a full budget request. That is unacceptable. You are now testifying that the budget proposes to slash FDA by more than 11%. That's actually news to all of us, and I'll tell you right now, it is not going to fly. It's reckless, and it's not going to happen as long as I have anything to say about it. Now, Commissioner McCary, when it comes to your mass firing of FDA employees, in April you said, quote, "I can tell you there were no cuts to scientists or inspectors." Well, that is not true. I think Senator Ossoff covered that, and I think the point here is that all of this firing and rehiring, I don't see how that's efficient. Frankly, it kind of shows that you don't know what you're doing and that you're breaking things in the process here. And so let me ask you a question, and hopefully it is an easy one for you. Does it save taxpayer dollars to fire staff who work in centers that are fully funded by user fees, not taxpayer dollars, yes or no?
Nice to see you again, Senator Murray. You asked me to do an assessment of the staff when I came here for my confirmation hearing. And I hear that you're criticizing me for bringing back some individuals after the cuts that I was not a part of.
I'm saying that's good. I'm just saying in the long run, this has been very inefficient. But my question to you is not about that. And I know you've covered it with several other members. So does it save taxpayer dollars to fire staff who work in centers that are fully funded by user fees, not taxpayer dollars? Is that efficient? Does it save money?
The cuts were to HR, IT, communications. There were 2,600
But they're funded by
HR
user
staff.
fees. They're funded by user fees.
In part.
It is not saving any
In
money.
part.
Well, many of the staff you fired were in centers that are actually fully funded by user fees. You know that, correct?
So if we have 2,600 HR people, do you want me to not make any cuts
No,
to
I'm
that number?
asking you a specific question about the centers that are fully funded by user fees.
That's one center. It's the tobacco center.
Well,
and so
okay, well, let me just say.
You said we can't just keep cut and cut. We can't keep hiring and hiring. The agency doubled since 2007. So let me ask you, what is the right number of employees?
No, you're
at the
here to
HR?
answer my questions,
Okay.
sir, and I'm going to ask some more. Without critical support staff you fired, inspectors cannot plan their trips. They cannot do their jobs. I want to ask you, what % of planned inspections has FDA missed since those April 1st firings?
In the 12 labs that we have that evaluate food products in the food inspection realm, there are no, as of last week, I just did a check, there are no backlogs. They are running at 100% efficiency. There are no drug approval delays, despite the, what people
Well,
want to
that is
attribute.
not what I have been told. I have been told, and I would like you to go back and check and report back to us, because we know that some of the planned inspections at these that were supposed to take place have been missed. And to me, why that's so important, if there is not inspections, the public doesn't have the information that they need. I am going to run out of time, so I want to move on.
Yeah, there were no cuts to inspectors.
Will you
Senator.
go back and check for me, please?
Absolutely.
I understand, and by the way, inspector's one thing, but if you don't have the support staff to make sure that they know
Yeah,
where
but
they're going.
2,600
Okay.
HR staff and procurement
Okay,
staff?
I understand that the FOIA staff producing documents related to ongoing litigation by the Children's Health Defense, Senator Kennedy's organization, were shielded from the RIF, while other FOIA staff are responsible for FOIA responses at other FDA centers were targeted for termination. Is that true?
That's not true, Senator. We have our FOIA staff. They continue to work at the FDA. I've made sure that all the FOIA staff at the FDA are doing their job. We are also using AI to reduce the burden on that staff.
Well, for the record, my understanding is that the Children's Health Defense FOIA staff were not fired when other ones were.
All the FOIA
and
staff are there.
And that seems like a real conflict of interest to me, considering that the Secretary's extensive history with that organization, Children's Health Defense, and his goal to remove authorizations for vaccines. So I just want that on
It's
the
not
record.
true.
Well,
All FOIA staff are in place.
okay, so if a study came out saying that people who took a certain medication experience a certain rate of, quote, serious adverse events, but the study's authors refused to say what they were counting as an adverse event, would that raise serious questions for you about the study's validity?
Yes, Senator. So I have the natural inquisition of a scientist that's done a lot of research, so I would want to see the underlying data, yes.
Okay. Well, I am, of course, talking about the sham study from the Ethics and Public Policy Center. It's an anti-abortion group. It's bankrolled by extremists. They fought to overturn Roe v. Wade. And this study, if you can call it that, is unsound and has been widely panned by medical experts. But days after its release, you and Secretary Kennedy are now suggesting that we need a, quote, complete review on the safety of mifepristone. Now, to be clear, mifepristone has been proven safe and effective in more than 100 studies over 3 decades. And the people that are now pushing that bogus study and saying that mifepristone is dangerous for women are the exact same people who think that abortion is never necessary to save a woman's life and that 10-year-olds should somehow be forced into childbirth. I believe that this administration is laying the groundwork to rip away access to medication abortion across the country. This has not gotten enough attention, and I know you'd prefer to keep it that way, but I want you to know I'm not going to let that happen.
I have not seen that study, Senator, and you have not seen that study.
Well,
so how
actually,
can you call it a sham bogus study? Neither of us have seen the study, the underlying data, or the methodology.
Actually, that's not true, but I will say this. Mr. Chairman, we have a lot of differences here. I know you came before this committee to present your side of the story, but I am very clear that laying off people, cutting budgets, is not going to improve the safety and efficacy that we count on when we go to the drugstore to get our drugs. And I know that sham studies that try to prove a point that came from a political group is not going to tell the public that they can count on the medications they count on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield.
Senator Patty Murray just tore the mask off. What we're seeing is the Republican blueprint for disaster. Defund, destabilize, and then deflect blame. Firing FDA staff without understanding their roles? That's not reform, it's recklessness. And McCarry's flimsy responses? Nothing but bureaucratic tap dancing to justify chaos. This is a man who greenlit mass firings in user fee funded departments, then had the gall to rehire some staff like it was a harmless glitch. Let's be clear, when you gut the FDA, you don't just hurt paper pushers. You gamble with food safety, drug approvals, and infant formula inspections. The GOP's obsession with slashing budgets isn't about efficiency, it's about control, about undermining agencies that stand between corporate greed and public health. Murray called it what it is: dangerous, inefficient, and a direct threat to American lives. If you thought Senator Murray was tough, Senator Peters comes in next, and what he uncovers about bird flu, drug shortages, and GOP negligence will leave your jaw on the floor.
Senator Peters.
Thank you, Chairman Hoeven, and thank you for talking about infant formula and talking about our bill specifically, and thank you for eliciting a response from our witness that we both really appreciate. So thank you for doing that. Dr. McCary, when I was chair of Homeland Security and Government Affairs, we did a study looking at persistent drug shortages throughout the country. And found that a lot of it is because we're over-reliant on foreign sources for those supplies, and many of the precursors, as you know, are all overseas. And in fact, in that study, when I put it out, I said it's pretty clear based on these challenges with the supply chain that when there is a pandemic, we're going to find ourselves in a very difficult position. 6 months later, that academic study became reality as we dealt with the pandemic, and certainly saw that we had highly efficient supply chains, but they were not resilient. And I remain concerned that the FDA does not have the visibility it needs into essential medicine supply chains, from the key ingredients needed for manufacturing our drug products to the distribution to the patients in hospitals and pharmacies. And these blind spots clearly limit our ability to accurately assess national security risk, including our over-dependence on China in particular for many critical inputs. So last week, I reintroduced the MAPS Act with several of my bipartisan colleagues, which would address this critical gap by requiring HHS through public-private partnerships to essentially map out the medical supply chains using data analysis and to assess all the threats and vulnerabilities. So my question for you is, do you agree that this is a significant concern? And if so, will you commit to work when we pass this legislation to make this a reality?
Senator Peters, I love this topic. It's so important. I'm glad you're raising it. I've written about it in a book in 2019. I've written about it in the Journal of the American Medical Association. I felt like no one has been paying attention. I warned about exactly what happened at the beginning of COVID, and it happened. So I am totally aligned with you that this is an important issue. I think there are root causes that we've not been talking about that we need to talk about. I mean, we can get out a ruler and map out the supply chains, and I'm not opposed to that exercise, but the underlying problem is that manufacturing has moved overseas. And it's not just one or two things. It is most of what we use in anesthesia to perform surgery. It is most antibiotics. It is most of these cutting-edge therapies. It is the vast majority of generic drugs. And so I totally am in support of President Trump's agenda here to bring manufacturing back to the United States. And we've already had a tremendous amount of success. There are companies announcing moving manufacturing to the United States. We're creating incentives. We're removing regulation. And this is a national security issue. So I am 100% with you on this.
Very good. In April, FDA reported suspending programs to improve testing for potential bird flu virus contamination of milk, cheese, and pet food because of the mass layoffs that occurred. We know that the bird flu virus can kill pets who eat contaminated raw pet food, and it can pose a real danger to humans who also consume unpasteurized dairy products. As you know, the more people and animals who get infected with bird flu, the more opportunities there are for the virus to mutate. And I'm really worried that we only may be a couple, and it's not just me, others are worried that there may be a couple of mutations away from having another potentially pandemic. So my question for you, sir, is with the continued spread of bird flu in the country and the significant personnel disruptions at FDA food safety programs, could you tell me and the committee specifically what the FDA is currently doing to ensure our food is free from bird flu contamination?
Well, first of all, that story was debunked by the Washington Post. It was the normal procurement pause to recalibrate the equipment. And so when that happened, people who were trying to make us look bad, sometimes internally, sometimes externally, said, aha, there were layoffs, and there's a pause in some of the milk inspection, and therefore the cuts may have been related to this or were related to this, and that's going to affect food safety. No, it was a normally scheduled pause to recalibrate equipment. It went through its normal schedule, and it is back up and running, and it's normally done to recalibrate the equipment. The cuts were to 380 communications people. What's the right number of communications people for the FDA? Not 380. 125 travel coordinators, 13 strategy offices, 2,600 HR people, and budget and procurement people. So, I mean, are we not supposed to address some of this redundancy?
My question is, what exactly are you doing to safeguard our food supply and to safeguard the people from bird flu? So that was the question. I think you're prepared for a different question, and you gave the answer to the different question. But the question is specifically what you're doing.
You
Please.
suggested the cuts increased our risk of bird flu, and I firmly reject that. That's not true, and the inspection trains are running on time.
I think I said personnel disruptions. So
there's no personnel disruptions involved.
There are no personnel
calibration facility that was written about.
So there are no personnel disruptions related to your work on bird flu? Is that what you're telling this committee?
What I'm saying is the story that you referenced was saying that our milk calibration facility paused because
I don't remember
disruptions.
I don't think I cited a particular article. I don't know where. Obviously, you're prepared for a question that I didn't ask.
No,
that's fine.
You referenced.
You probably gave a good answer to a question that I didn't ask, and so that shows you were prepped for it. I'm asking you, what are you doing about bird flu? Just answer that, please. Don't give me a runaround about other stuff.
We're doing a lot on bird flu.
Don't use your prepared talking points. Tell me, what are you doing to help us and protect the American people from bird flu? Please tell me that.
We're doing a lot on bird flu.
Please tell me that. That's what I want to hear.
So, look, when there is an antigenic shift that represents a epidemic threat, when there is human-to-human transmission, that strain that is involved in that human-to-human transition is the strain that we should be using to base any potential future vaccines. And in the interim, as I said in my opening comments, delivering on a universal flu shot is one of our top goals. And there are 2 universal flu shots that are in development. And we are not in a receive-only mode with those developers. We are actively trying to partner with those individuals, because it may be that you could come in for a single a single influenza vaccine or a 2-dose strategy or something like that, and be immune for life against multiple different variants of influenza, including bird flu. And so early preclinical data in animal studies has shown some promise that a universal flu shot using a traditional vaccine platform can actually create antibodies to the current strain of bird flu. The question, of course, is, and I think this is really what you're getting at, is if we have a bird flu epidemic or even an outbreak in a human-to-human fashion, what strain is that going to be? Because one thing we know for sure is it's not going to be the strain that's circulating right now in millions of birds. So it is a huge priority for us, Senator.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr.
Senator Peters didn't come to play. He came to make the GOP squirm. He zeroed in on drug shortages, foreign dependency, and the looming threat of bird flu, only to be met with spin and distraction. McCarry's answers? A masterclass in not answering. Instead of telling us how the FDA is safeguarding our food supply, he whines about being misquoted and recycles talking points about HR cuts and calibration delays. Let's get real. We're facing a global pathogen threat, and the guy in charge is more concerned with defending Trump's deregulation agenda than with actual public safety? Peters asked the simplest question: what are you doing to protect Americans from bird flu? And McCarry twisted himself into a knot to avoid giving a straight answer. This is what happens when you appoint ideologues, not experts. The FDA's mission is safety, not partisan posturing. And right now, Americans are paying the price. This hearing was a horror show in slow motion. 2 senators, Patty Murray and Gary Peters, dropped bomb after bomb, exposing a Republican-led FDA that's spiraling into dysfunction. What's at stake? Everything from the drugs we trust to the food we eat. And yet, what did we get from Commissioner McCarry? Denial, deflection, and pre-scripted nonsense. He fired key staff, then gaslit the committee about it. He refused to own up to delays. And when confronted with a bogus anti-abortion study being used to undermine reproductive health care, he played dumb. This isn't just administrative incompetence, it's sabotage wrapped in spin. The GOP wants to gut regulatory agencies so badly they're willing to risk lives. And the worst part, they'll turn around and blame Democrats when the system fails. But we're not buying it. The lies are exposed. The hypocrisy is naked, and the American people deserve better than this reckless, politicized circus. Subscribe to Malcolm Varon Hearing for raw truth, sharp analysis, and no holds barred takedowns of right wing dysfunction. Like, comment, and share if you're done with Republican gaslighting.